So I may have shown you this before, maybe not. That's a lark's foot, girth hitch, cow hitch. Lark's head, it's the best possible way to hold a string line on a stake. Now before I show you the real magic in stretching a string line, I want to point out that this is a braided mason's line. 18 gauge, about 165 pounds tensile strength, which means it'll cut you before you break it. You can either choose braided or twisted mason's line. There's a difference. I'll show you what it is. But first, here's how you tie off and stretch a string if you're going to set a concrete form or anything else. You go around the stake. The tension side wraps over the top of the slack side. So all you have to do is that. And if you can pull 160 pounds, you're going to have one tight line. It's been years since we did string line pro tips, a very comprehensive video about the tricks and traps and processes for using string line in construction. But it's been long enough I thought I would revisit some of those things and then show you a new product that's come to the market, and then show you the thing that I didn't show you about why twisted mason's line is different than braided mason's line, and in which cases you might want which one. First two things. You've got to cut your string. You don't have a knife. Well, it just so happens that the first viral video we ever uploaded was about how to cut it with your bare hands. But the next thing that I'm going to show you right now can only be done if you're using a square concrete stake. Watch this. Try that on a round stake. Here's trick number 2. Hold the line, get a hold. Let me show you that again. Get a hold, and do this. Bam. If that's not magic, I don't know what magic is. All right, so let's say you've got to set up a batter board. You know what batter boards are, right? So this is a real hard piece of grade, but a 7-pound form setter has no problem. But there's some controversy about why are square stakes better than round stakes. And my friends, if it's not clear to you right now, I don't know what I could possibly say. Boards have flat sides, right? Boards are flat. They're not round. Your concrete stakes should have a flat side and not be round. Is that an oversimplification? All right, look at that. I got to drop down to get to the hole. Full of concrete. Lazy form carpenter. Oh well, so that doesn't work out of level for a batter board, but you can drive it down if you got a 7-pound form setter. But you can see, right? Flat side, flat side. Now watch this. You got to kick it off. It's the same thing. You have a nice flat side against the corner of your board. And then you use your hammer to back it up. Oh, concrete in the hole. Let's put it over here. Use your hammer. That's good for what we're doing. Now here's the problem. You got your batter board set up, and let's just say that you've got a very carefully located dimension right there. How do you stretch the string? Let me show you. So you've all seen people run it around there and then try to tie knots and half hitches, and it's never tight unless you put a fiddle string knot on there. Around your finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Then you just put the loop over the nail and you pull the string with one hand and take up the slack with the other. Listen to that. On that rusty nail, and you hold it like that. That's also, you've taught me in the comments, called an engineer's knot. And to get it loose, You got to wind up, you got to get the string out of the way, the batch truck's coming in, string's got to go down, boom, it's down. So I'm going to show you guys an invention that Rapid Reel just came up with, and what they responded to is the difficulty or the time that it takes to wind up a piece of string, especially on a 20-year-old piece of an oak branch. Now, String Liner and other people have sold line on, plastic wind-up devices. But let me show you what I think is a great innovation. These guys sent me 2 of these, Rapid Reel. They put an axle on there for your cordless drill. So it's a pretty good idea because it'll save some amount of time. So when you unwrap it, it's really hard. It's wound on there tight because in the factory they wind it on there under friction or with resistance. Where's the end? There's the end right there. And it's never going to be as tight as it was. But if you've got 100 feet of line or 200 feet of line, it's probably worth getting out the drill motor. Now, if you've got 20 or 25 feet, it's just not worth it. But let me show you something, and then we'll talk about Rapid Reel, what might be the real strong suit of your brilliant innovation. So it works better on low speed, and you can fair lead it on. Got a little weight out there just to keep some tension on there. Now let me show you what I figured out accidentally a couple months ago that I wasn't able to film, but has to be mentioned. This was the other reel they gave me. And this is Klein wire pulling cord. You can buy a can of this, I don't know, it's 1,500 feet or something, and it's strong and you can't tie it very well, but it pulls conduit. And I didn't have enough of this to reach the 250 foot I had to pull. So I tied it onto the end of the mason's line that was on there, and I sucked it through the line, and I tied it onto the wire, and I started pulling it back, and I thought, wait a minute, what if I put this thing on here? And so I did. And suddenly I had a little winch for pulling the wire through the conduit. And I pulled about 150 feet of pretty heavy wire in one shot, just like that. And I had to lift to resist, right? But man, I'll tell you what, Rapid Reel, I think you need to go into the electrical winching business. And maybe this already exists, but that is as hard as a stepmother's heart because of the tension that was on that when I was reeling it in. It pulled that wire in 60 seconds instead of 15 tedious minutes. It's a great product, guys. So you need line, and you go into the lumber yard or the box store, wherever you go, and you've got twisted mason's line and you got braided mason's line, and you decide how much you want. But right away you're going to see the braided is a lot more money. And so you'll say, well, it doesn't have to be expensive, I'll buy twisted. And maybe you can, if all you're doing is stretching strings and taking measurements. I mean, it works, and it cuts easy, and it kind of ravels at the end, and it's a little slippery so the knots don't hold quite as well. Yeah. But if you're going to put it on a plumb bob, you got to buy braided. I'll show you. So this little plumb bob I got from someplace. I like this plumb bob on that gammon reel, and that's a tightly braided line. And the reason for that is, let me just put a loop in the end of this, because this plumb bob, somebody put a wire in there. So you can hang that as long as you want, and it's not going to twist except from whatever momentum you give it when you drop it, right? It's just going to hang there. So with a braided line, you can hang that. I don't care if it's 20 feet or 50 feet or 2 feet, it's going to hang without twisting unless you put some momentum into it when you let go of it with your hand. But the line is not forcing a twist. However, with a twisted mason's line, which, let me repeat, works just fine just for stretching strings and getting measurements, as long as you remember your knots are going to slip out a little easier. But with a twisted line, you are automatically and unavoidably going to have a twisting plumb bob because the line is unwrapping. So, I mean, keep it in mind. Maybe you don't own a plumb bob. Maybe you're never going to own a plumb bob, and now we go back to the right. So, the upshot of this is string is one of the most fundamental and important tools you can have in your toolkit. String's been around since before the pyramids. I mean, they used, let's just assert that they used string lines when they set Stonehenge. I don't know, but you've got to have it, and you've got to know how to use it. We've got a very comprehensive video on that. You may enjoy that. And rapid reel, this is a home run, especially if you're an electrician. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.